Hey, what's up everybody? It's Brian Dean from QuickSprout, and in this video I'm going to teach you how to set up and optimize your sitemap. So basically a sitemap is a page on your site that helps search engines find the content on your site, and it's kind of like it sounds. It's a map of your site. So I'm going to walk you through the different parts of the sitemap and explain what they mean. So all the way to the left you have the URL section, and that is just a list of URLs on your site that you want search engines to find. And then you have the priority area, and that basically tells search engines which pages on your site are most important. And in theory, pages that have a priority of, let's say, 100% are more likely to be indexed than pages with a priority of 20%, although not everyone in SEO agrees that that's the case. Then we have change frequency. So this is how often you tend to update each of the pages on your website. And then under last change, that tells search engines when the last time a significant change was made to that page. So how do you set up your sitemap and how do you submit it to search engines? Well, if you're using WordPress, your first step is to install a plugin that will create a sitemap for you. So log into your WordPress dashboard, hover over plugins and click on add new. And then under search, put in Google XML and click on search plugins. And under Google XML sitemaps, you want to install it. I've already installed it, obviously, but you would just click install and activate it. And once you do that, hover over settings in the sidebar and click on XML sitemap. Now, in general, you don't want to make too many changes to the plugin because the way it's set up is actually pretty much like you want it. Okay, so I'm just going to walk you through each section of the plugin in case you do need to make any changes. So under the top here, you have the URL of your sitemap, which is important to keep in mind. And for most sites, it's site.com/sitemap.xml. And then it tells you when it was last updated. So if for some reason this is out of date, you can click the rebuild the sitemap button, and that will rebuild the sitemap based on the changes that you just made. And then under basic option, by default, it writes it as a normal XML file, which is the standard language for sitemaps. So you do want to keep that the same. And it also writes a gzip file, which just makes that page a little bit smaller. And then under additional pages, you can add pages to your sitemap manually that for one reason or another aren't being added when you create the sitemap. So if you have a subdirectory on your site and it's not being added to the sitemap, you can add that manually. Just click on add new page and include the URL, the priority from 10% to 100%, how often that page is updated, and then the date that it was last changed. And then under post priority, they actually prioritize your pages, or posts I should say, based on how many comments it gets, okay? Which is one way to do it. It's not the best, but there's no perfect system for establishing priority, so I just usually leave this by default. But if you, let's say, don't have a blog and you're running WordPress for some different reason and you don't get comments, this obviously doesn't make sense. So you'd want to choose do not use automatic priority calculation. But because I'm running a blog, I'll keep it at comment count. Now, for the location of your sitemap file, by default, like I had said, it's /sitemap.xml, but if for some reason you want to change that, you can choose custom location and add a URL that works better for you, but I'm going to keep it by default. And then under sitemap content, if there are pages or sections of your site that you really want indexed, let's say you have a bunch of authors on your site and you want their pages to be indexed, you can include those author pages in the sitemap and they will be more likely to be indexed by Google. Now, on the other hand, if you have excluded items, so if you have pages on your site that you don't want to get indexed, like a membership area or private pages for internal use, you can always create a category like members only or something like that, and then click it here. And when you save your settings, all the pages under that category won't be added to the sitemap. So once you have your sitemap set up like you want it, you want to note the URL of your sitemap. Then head over to Google Webmaster Tools. So once you log into Google Webmaster Tools, this is what you'll see. And this is important because setting up your sitemap actually isn't enough. You also want to submit it to Google to let them know that it's there and to see if there are any issues. So once you log into Webmaster Tools, click on Crawl and then click on Sitemaps. And then click on Add Test Sitemap. and then put in the URL. So we said it's sitemap.xml. and click on Test Sitemap, and then click on View Test Result. Now in this case, there are 24 pages submitted, which is how many I want, and error details, no errors found, so we're good to go. So click on Close Sitemap Test, and now you want to add the sitemap. So put in the same URL, and then click on Submit Sitemap. And when you do that, it'll tell you how many pages on your site are indexed versus how many are in the sitemap, and ideally, they're the same number. Now, if you have a new site or you're submitting a sitemap for the first time, it may take a while for these two numbers to mesh. And if they don't line up, so if you have more pages on your sitemap than are indexed, that could be a problem. And there's a few reasons that could happen. The first is that if you have a huge site, it can take a while for Google to find all those pages. And also, if you have a really big site that's more than 5,000 URLs, you actually need multiple sitemaps. So if you're having some issues after a couple weeks, you're still not seeing all your URLs indexed, you may want to submit multiple sitemaps, and that's what I'm going to show you how to do right now. So to set up multiple sitemaps on a single domain, you'll want to install a different plugin than Google XML. Okay, so you want to install the Yoast SEO plugin. So to do that, hover over Plugins and click on Add New, and type in Yoast, search Plugins, and it's the first one that comes up. Okay, so once it's installed, you'll see this little yellow symbol here with SEO, and then click on XML sitemaps. Okay, and you want to make sure this is checked off because this will create an XML sitemap for you. And when you do, click here, and you'll notice that it looks a lot different than the one that was created by the Google XML plugin, right? It's very different because what this basically is, it's a sitemap of your sitemap. So it helps break down the different categories of your site and makes each sitemap smaller, which could increase indexation of your website. So if you click on one of the sitemaps, this is a sitemap for all the posts on your site. So this is all posts, and there's a separate one for pages, right? So that's, you can see how much easier that would be for search engines when they go here. They can actually understand what these pages are about because of what category they fall under. So that's a very easy way to set up multiple sitemaps. Now, what if you're not using WordPress? Well, it's a little more complicated to set up a sitemap, but it's actually not that hard. You just want to use a tool called Online XML Sitemap Generator, okay, which is at Sitemap.com. Okay, so this is the place you want to go to create a sitemap if you don't use WordPress, okay? So what you want to do is enter your site into here, so backlinko.com in this case. Click on Get Free XML Sitemap, then enter the CAPTCHA, which is DH97K in this case. And then you can obviously make different modifications just like you could with the plugin, and then click on Create Free XML Sitemap, and this will take a while because it actually has to visit your site and look for all the URLs on your site. So once that's all set up, you want to download it on your local machine and then use an FTP client like FileZilla, okay, to upload the XML page to your website. So you'd add it to your website just like you would a regular HTML page, except you'd want obviously the end to, instead of being .html or .html or .php, you want it to be .xml, and you can put it at whatever file name you want, whatever page name you want. It doesn't have to be sitemap.xml, because when you go to Webmaster Tools, remember, you can add a sitemap, and as long as it's after your domain name, so it's not a subdomain, you're all set. So it could be like, you know, sitemap1, okay, .xml. So it doesn't have to be the exact name sitemap for Google to find it, because you can just submit it using Google Webmaster Tools. So that's all there is to setting up and optimizing your sitemap. As you can see, it's not that hard, but it's a really, really important, actually fundamental thing that you definitely want on your website to make sure Google can find all of your content. So that's all there is for this video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.